A very warm good afternoon to all of you who've joined, all our viewers, our participants across APAC and Gulf. And I definitely want to welcome you here to another action packed session as every month. Monster RecRoute, as you all know, is an initiative by Monster.com to connect leaders in the HR and recruiting space. With aspirational TA professionals through a series of live webinar sessions, the idea is to share the learnings, trends, and the best practices to empower and enable them to keep up with the fast changing recruiting landscape. Well, we have a very interesting topic today. Here you go. How to build an effective HR and talent acquisition strategy to win the war for talent. And since it's a dynamic topic, we already have a dynamic speaker amidst us. Well, to talk more about the topic, let me introduce you to today's speaker, Mr. Varun Madan, Senior Director and Head of Human Resources, Xiaomi India. At Xiaomi, Varun heads the India HR team and is responsible for delivering on business people priorities. Varun has 20 plus years of work experience in fast-paced, high-growth companies in the internet, business intelligence and analytics, and also the BPO space. Well, prior to joining Xiaomi, Varun has worked with OLX, Prop Equity, and Make My Trip, among others. Varun gained exposure to all parts of HR in specialist roles during the early years of his career. He has an executive diploma in human resource management from XLRI, Jamshedpur. When not working, Varun enjoys reading fiction, watching movies, dabbling in adventure sports, experimenting with different recipes in the kitchen, experiencing different cuisines, and spending time with his family. Well, not necessarily in that order as well. So welcome to RecRoute. Varun, over to you. Thank you so much for joining with us today.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Noel. Thank you for that very kind and very elaborate introduction. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, everybody. Depending on what part of the world you're in, possibly good morning as well. Thank you for your kind presence. Thank you for making time in your schedule to listen to me and what I have to share. I hope to learn and engage from you as much as you hope to get some key takeaways from my talk here. But once again, thank you so much for having me. And without taking up too much of your time, let me just quickly jump to the topic at hand. And Noel, if you could just give me a thumbs up to let me know if you can, see my screen, that would be super helpful.
I can see the screen at the moment.
Yes. All right, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, so like Noel mentioned, right? I work with Xiaomi. That is Xiaomi. It's not Xiaomi. It's not Xiaomi. It's no other variation. The way we would want to call it is Xiaomi. And something that we fundamentally believe at Xiaomi is, always believe something wonderful is about to happen. And it's only because of this belief that we have going at Xiaomi. We feel that, we've managed to achieve so much in such a short span of time. We're 12 years young, only 8 years in India, and we've been the number one brand in India for over 4 years now. So I think that is extremely commendable as a company, and really, something that all of us take a lot of pride in. And also, I can say it with a lot of pride that we're, without sounding immodest, but we also, this is something that keeps us grounded and keeps us looking forward on how do we keep disrupting the market and how do we keep moving forward. Now, over to let's, get this party started. The topic on hand today, building an effective HR and talent acquisition strategy to win the war for talent. That was the topic, that Noel reached out to me with. Took some time, had to do a lot of thinking. And I hope, the structure and the format that I'm really going to be presenting to you is really going to be worth your time as well. But before that, just a quick dipstick. We have over 100 people on the call right now. What parts of the world are you in? What cities are you coming in from? If you could just type that out in the chat box. would give us a sense of what our audience is looking like. Yeah. Okay. So Bangalore, Kolkata, Pune, Philippines. Wow. And we have some folks from Mumbai, Hyderabad. All right, quite a few people from Mumbai, and we have some people from Dubai as well. Excellent. Macedonia, wow. Monster, you guys are really absolutely killing it. Okay. Singapore, Philippines again, amazing. Malaysia, Jaipur, Noida, Coimbatore. Wow, that is quite an eclectic crowd. I hope I'm, able to actually live up to all of your expectations. But at the same time, like I said, right, it's going to be a continuous learning journey, and I hope to learn from you as much as you hope to learn from me. So, looking forward to an engaging session. The Monster team gave me about an hour. Uh, Personally, I think if I'm not able to, deliver or say what I have to say in 30 minutes or less, then probably, even an hour would not really be sufficient. So I'll try to keep this tight and maybe, leave more room for questions towards the end where we actually get a chance to interact. Okay. So with that, let's, quickly get down to the topic at hand. Now, really, when we talk about HR strategy, business strategy, this is a question that I have for everybody. Uh, are you really living in your own silo? Are you living in an ivory tower, HR tower, and HR silo? How well do you really connect with business? How well do you really understand the business strategy? And once you have an understanding of the business strategy, how is that business strategy really aligning with your HR strategy? It can't happen that the business wants to go north and the HR team wants to take the long circuitous route to north. Possibly you'll get there, definitely you'll get there, but via the east or the west or the south or some long drawn path. uh, for example here, right, let me talk about businesses which are focusing on cost leadership. How is your HR strategy aligning with the larger business strategy? How are you really going to help your business deliver that cost leadership, that market leadership, that positioning that your business really wants to achieve? On a different note, if the business strategy is about creating differentiation in terms of a unique product, in terms of a unique service, which ultimately would mean that the business is really going to be making a lot of investments in marketing, in positioning that product in the right fashion. There'll be a lot of investments happening in research and development. Possibly sourcing will happen at a premium, so more higher priced inputs really go into it, which ultimately impacts the overall cost of the product. And therefore, again, how is your HR strategy really aligning with the business strategy? So the question really is, how far are you from the baseline? And when I ask that question, I really mean, do you understand your business strategy? And how closely is your HR strategy aligning with the business strategy? Uh, Now, again, a question for everybody. Do you have a great and a deep understanding of the business strategy and the associated HR strategy? Do you understand it deeply? Would you really be able to explain it to a new hire who comes and joins your team, or a potential candidate who's really looking at applying for a job with you? And the business strategy and the HR strategy are not big mission statements or vision statements that your organization may essentially have on their website, but really uh, you know the business strategy is possibly going to be a 1 year plan, a 2 year plan, a 3 year plan. And how is the HR strategy aligning with that? Now, if your answer to this question is that I don't understand it because I'm too junior, or I'm in an HR operations role, or I'm a talent acquisition professional, or business strategy is only meant to be understood by HR business partners, or senior members of the HR team are really supposed to own it or understand it, then those are not the right answers. The only two acceptable options to this question is a yes or a yes. There is no third option there. Uh, it is imperative for every person in the HR team to understand the business, to understand the strategy. If you don't have that understanding, any part of HR you will not really be able to deliver on, and that is something that I fundamentally believe, and having worked across all sub teams within HR as an individual contributor or even as a team manager before taking on a HR leadership role. uh, I think this was something that always helped me and kept me in good stead. Now, when we talk about, okay, there is the business strategy, there is the HR strategy, but then you move down to the to the baseline. Are your HR activities, plans, programs, frameworks, whatever name you want to assign to them, how well are they really aligning with the business and the larger HR strategy there? And this is where, depending on what stage or what life cycle you're at, these are some indicative things that I'm talking about here. Of course, there are more parts to this, but how is the organization designed? How are the different functions or the teams, the sub functions? What is the structure there? How are they designed? What is the manpower plan looking like? From a 6 month window to a 1 year window to 2 years or even 3 years for that. These days, I think forecasting headcount and business plans, of course, over a 2 or a 3 year window can be, is not really going to be the most accurate. But even if you're able to predict it with a certain degree of, uh, certainty, chances are, you're in a good space there. And of course, with all of this, an HR operating budget, you can have the fanciest frameworks, you can have the best plans, but if you don't have the HR budget to back it up, chances are none of it is really going to get executed in the manner that you want it to get executed. Now, I'm using this as an example. Of course, each of us come from different companies. Each of our companies are in different life cycles, are on their own roadmap. But I'm using this as an example, and feel free to, customize this, adapt this, whichever way you would really want to. But a unified competency framework, and what do I mean by that? A competency framework that you may have at an organization level or at a functional level, or uh, at a role level. A role level, when I say a role level, I'm talking about a competency framework which is more for people managers versus individual contributors. I'm not getting into a competency framework which is aimed at, say, for example, talent acquisition professionals only. I'm talking about a more holistic, unified competency framework which looks at the entire organization across multiple levels or layers or whatever terminology you may want to refer it with, or something not necessarily at an organization level but at a function level. Again, within each function, looking at the function more holistically, what does that competency framework look like? Or possibly just a very simple one: individual contributor, this is the competency framework; team managers, this is the competency framework that we'll be looking at. But if you do this early, or if you have this in place, it's really going to help you uh, solve a lot of problems early on, and even as the company continues to grow and continues to scale. Number one, if you have a competency framework, you know what you're looking to hire, what are the skills, what are the the knowledge set, what kind of people do you really want to hire, and that's where talent acquisition will come into play. uh, Now, you may already have an existing team and you have a competency framework, and this actually helps you do a gap analysis. What are the skills that you need versus what are the skills that are available? And if you already have people who have almost all of the skills, or the skills that they have are at a maturity stage, chances are learning and development is not necessarily going to be a huge area of investment for you. But if the gap is much wider, then for your existing resource pool, you may have to make a lot of investments in learning and development. Last but not the least, you know what you're hiring people for, so are you also evaluating them? against that same criteria. And this is where the entire performance management framework comes in. Now, these are three key, big ticket items that largely HR teams are focused on and delivering against. And if you have that competency framework, life becomes slightly more easy. But another place where actually this competency framework comes into play is when we talk about compensation and benefits, when we talk about designing employee policies. Are our policies aligned with the behaviors and the skills that we are hiring for, and on an ongoing basis we want people to develop through our learning and development framework? And are we rewarding in terms of compensation or benefits, the right kind of performance output that our teams are really delivering out there? So one competency framework, if you invest a certain amount of time in building that from the ground up, or even if you're looking at a competency framework off the shelf, and with the necessary degree of customization for your respective organization, it will actually help streamline a lot of things for you. Talent acquisition, definitely life becomes easier there. Learning and development, yes, that is of course going to be the investment and the upskilling that you do for your existing workforce. Performance management, where you're evaluating the right skills and at the same time rewarding those skills depending on how they're really getting manifested in terms of behaviors. Now, again, I spoke about the business strategy, I spoke about the HR strategy, and I also talked about the actions, the action plans, or the programs or the frameworks that you may have to bring that HR strategy or to give that HR strategy to life. Now, where really are we going to take this conversation forward in terms of an effective HR or a talent acquisition strategy, and taking it forward from there? Now, here's a quick question for you. Everybody's been talking about this, war for talent. Uh, are you caught in the hype? Because this is really seeing a lot of traction. There is a, these are possibly, things or topics that a lot of, HR professionals, senior leaders, a lot of researchers are writing about. So there's a lot of buzz that is getting created around it. But are you specifically, or your organization or your team, really in that war for talent? In the 60s, McKinsey, came up with this term and called it the war for talent. And in the 60s is when they said that, knowledge workers, there is possibly going to be a scarcity in that space. And organizations really need to be ready for a radical shift. And that radical shift in the mindset is required to attract, develop, and retain the highest caliber people. Now, unintended consequence was, of course, this word. People latched onto the word talent, and it became a corporate buzzword. And it has been that that corporate buzzword for over 50 years now. And it's just not, left the lexicon. I mean, if you were to think of, companies in the 90s or 80s, I don't think human capital or, human resources was that widely used a terminology. It was more about personnel management, or industrial relations management, and that's where it was. Now, wars are fought on many fronts, right? uh, the question again for you is, which front are you really fighting on? Are you fighting a war which is aimed at retaining the talent pool that you have? Are you fighting a war which is retailing at, aimed at developing the talent that you have? Or the topic that we're really here to discuss today, the talent acquisition war? How do we really bring in the best talent on board with us? This is where, I'd request you guys, can we queue up that poll, please, here?
Yes, sure, Varun. We could definitely, get that poll launched up and running. Let's see the first set of results. Okay, we are procuring the answers at the moment. Let's see how we fare in that. And I request all the participants to please attempt this poll, because it will always give us a deeper perspective in terms of the topic that we have scheduled for today. And I see 25 people completing at the moment. Let's give it another 10 seconds, Varun, and then maybe we can have a look at the results as well.
Sure, sure.
Again, I urge all the participants to please participate in these polls, which will only help us better and help us cater to the topic for today better. I have 88 people who've completed out of 128, and we still have people taking the poll. So probably after 5 to 10 seconds, maybe we can stop the poll and then talk about the results. And if I look at the current poll status as well, Varun, I see that sourcing and attracting the right candidates has the maximum percentage of 47, followed by last minute candidate dropouts.
Oh yes, I think that's something that's a nightmare for every HR professional. So yeah,
right. And I also see a lot of people dropping in saying that we are fighting for more talent acquisition.
All right, awesome, cool. So we've locked the poll, and thank you for everybody who's responded and participated in it. The results are there for everybody to see. Sourcing and attracting the right candidates, of course, that is 48%. That's 52 of you who've actually chosen that. And next up is last minute candidate dropouts. Now this is very interesting. So it's at the top of the funnel or at the bottom of the funnel. There are no challenges in the middle of the funnel. So I'm assuming that really says a lot.
Right.
So perfect. Okay, so yeah, let's move on, and hopefully I'll be able to share some information with you on tackling some of these problems. And some of these ideas may just work out for you, but if you think you have some other ideas, I definitely want to learn from you as well on this one. So number one, right, what is talent for yourself and for your organization? Again, I keep going back to the business strategy, the HR strategy, and the HR action plans. uh, you really need to get a good understanding of what does talent mean for you, for your company, for the industry that you're possibly operating in. But I think even if you leave the industry out of the equation, what's more important is you know what does talent really mean for your company, depending on what stage they are in. Now if you remember the McKinsey article that was published, it spoke about the war for talent and how that terminology really broke through and became mainstream and really became a big buzzword. But really the word talent was used in that McKinsey report to attract, develop, and retain the highest caliber of people, or the high potential, high performing group of people in a company. But then over a period of time, talent as a word has been used by companies, and it's become such a broad definition that really, at a certain level, I think personally, it's been rendered meaningless there. So you really need to define for yourself, what do you mean by talent? Is it a niche skill, people who possess that niche skill? Is it a role that's you know that's possibly one of the most critical roles in your organization? And that is a role that you possibly, while you may have an incumbent in that role right now, but do you even have enough bench strength and enough depth in your organization to backfill that, to move people internally to take on that role over a period of time? And are you making the right investments from a learning and development perspective to really hone in and zone in on that skill? So yeah, define that talent. Not And I say this and I don't mean to be rude or demeaning, but not everybody across the entire organization would actually fit into this definition, which is when we say the highest caliber people or the highest potential and the hyper group. So to my mind, actually, that would really be where we say that this person is part of the core talent pool of the company. Okay. Now let's again, talk about the talent acquisition war, the war for talent, and the talent acquisition war. A lot of you, in the poll mentioned that attracting and sourcing the right talent is definitely challenging. Uh, Now, each one of you would have access to the information in your respective companies, and even if you don't, it would be worthwhile to actually look at this data. I keep saying this, there's a lot of hype that's getting created, but not all of that hype is entirely true. A lot of it is happening in pockets. There are companies which may really be, struggling with, the acquisition challenge, and may really be fighting that war for talent on the talent acquisition front. There would probably be companies on the other side which are fighting that war on the talent retention front, or there could be companies which are really, facing that challenge in terms of talent development and scaling up that talent, and really, so you have to, one, identify what is the front on which this war you're fighting at. Two, again, check the data, validate the data. Are you getting caught in, uh, the grapevine or the news, or coffee or water cooler conversations, where people are reading stuff and people are making, generalizing or making broad sweeping statements for some attrition or some position that possibly has not been hired? So check the applicant pool, and look at it, probably 2 years ago, given that, COVID and all of this has happened. So look at the data from 2018, possibly 2019. Earlier, in terms of, for the same job, when you would post that job, how many applications would you receive? Uh, and has that number dropped? Is it largely broadly the same, or has that actually gone up? And again, is it a marginal drop? Is it a moderate drop? Or is it a significant drop? So if it is a significant drop, yes, possibly, there is this applicant pool which has shrunk. But if that hasn't changed significantly for you, you're in a good space. Now, next is, as a talent acquisition professional, selling the job, has it become easier? Has it become harder? Or is it still the same? It still takes you, that much time to explain the role specifications, talk to a prospective job seeker, convince that seeker about your company, and about the role on offer. So selling the job, how easy or difficult has that become for you? Again, you would know this information best. Uh, the offer to joiner ratio, and I think this came up, this definitely did, was the second, largest problem in terms of the poll that we conducted. Has the offer to joiner ratio dropped? I mean, earlier, if you were at 80%, is this now down to 60% or 40% even? That's a significant drop. But if earlier you were at, say, a 70% offer to drop ratio, if that number is at possibly about 65, you're not in such a bad place. And in some cases, possibly for some roles, in some locations, in some kind of, companies or industries, offer to joiner ratio has possibly gone up as well. The market keeps changing continuously. It's extremely dynamic, and really, you have to rely on data uh, to do this. So there will be anecdotal information, there'll be, water cooler conversations, there'll be coffee conversations or chai conversations, but there's a lot of information that is coming to you. Don't just, look at or just soak in the information that you're getting. Also back it up or validate it with data. Now, if your answer to these questions is yes, definitely you're in that war for talent, right? And when I say yes, I mean a resounding, significant kind of a yes to each of these questions. But if it is a moderate, or if it's a marginal or a slight kind of variation, then you're possibly not even in that zone. You're probably getting caught in the entire hype and the entire conversation that may be happening around you, but you're probably not suffering from it. It's just that with the way things have evolved over the last 2 years, these conversations have now become very mainstream. Earlier, same offer to joiner ratios, same kind of applicant pools, similar turnaround times, things were largely the same. It's just that nobody was talking about it, and it wasn't the centerpiece of any conversation there. Now, like I said, right, it's a war. How do you really prep for that war? How do you plan for it? How do you strategize for it? And most importantly, how do you really go ahead and you know uh, execute against the plans that you may have? So I'll go back and take an extract from one of the previous slides. Number one, do you have a good understanding of the organization design, of the functional structures that you may have? Is your manpower plan crystallized? Or do you have the necessary HR budgets around it? Do you have that unified competency framework that I was talking about? Or if not that, right? If not a unified competency framework which will find application in multiple areas of HR, do you have a understanding of what are the knowledge, skills, or attitude? Now, knowledge or skills or an attitude that I have, it gets manifested in terms of behavior. And really, what are those distinguishing knowledge, skills, and attitude behaviors that I'm displaying, which have a causal impact on superior performance? So, do you have a great understanding of that? And is that written down in your job description? Really, because when you start talking to candidates, you need to have this list of these are the knowledge, this is the knowledge that this individual needs to bring to the table. These are the skills that this really person needs to have, and this is the kind of attitude, that culture fit, that X factor that we talk about. This is the person that I'm going to market to hire. This is my list. This is what I'll be interviewing against. This is what I'll be sourcing against. This is the person that I would really want in the company, because this person is really going to help elevate the level of the performance and the level of the output for the company. And this is the person that I really want to go out and make those investments in terms of learning and development, in terms of pay for performance, in terms of possibly the policies that I really want to have in my company, which helps attract this kind of talent, which helps retain this kind of talent as well. Now, what you see here are some key pointers. Number one, depending on what life cycle your company is at. So some of the larger, more mature organizations, they prefer to build. Uh, that's the first pointer here. Build versus buy versus rent, right? The build strategy, long term, very painful. You probably need to go out to colleges and start connecting with early jobbers or undergraduates or postgraduates while they're still students, and start engaging with them and hire them from campus, and really wait for at least 6 months to a year before they become fully productive and they start contributing in the most possible manner. But that is the build strategy. The buy strategy is, of course, something that we all of us are, or we are seeing, and reading about it in a big way. There's this great resignation that's going on, and all of these people are resigning because they have other bigger, better jobs possibly on the other side. And that's what the buy strategy is something that the other company is adopting, or you may actually be engaging in a buy strategy yourself. The third is something that's again become very mainstream. It was always there, but again, it's become more and more mainstream and is the focus point of conversations these days, is the rent strategy. Hiring people on contract, hiring people on fixed term contract or job fulfillment contracts, the gig economy. So depending on what stage you're at and what kind of investments you're willing to make, you choose to either build or buy or rent, right? Uh, so large companies would probably choose to build and possibly buy for maybe some senior roles, or some hard to develop skills where uh, the life cycle or the gestation period for building out that skill is going to be really long. So they may adopt a blended approach. Uh, uh, Funded startups or early stage life cycle companies would possibly choose to buy a lot, maybe well-known brands with but possibly these could be well-known brands, but not necessarily the biggest of companies out there. Again, they may choose to go with a build or a buy strategy, and these kind of companies are really going to invest a lot in participating in you know uh, job fairs, or being present on job portals in a big way, or participating in workplace related kind of surveys which showcase some of their areas of strength. And that's what a lot of these companies will do. And then of course the rent is more for early stage companies. They possibly may not be willing to pay top dollar, or their product or their service is still in in that development phase, and they don't want to necessarily have too many people on an on a permanent kind of arrangement, and they would probably choose to go with the rent strategy. So again, you have the build, buy, or rent question depending on what life cycle and what stage you're in, what is the business strategy, and how is really the HR team thinking about it. The next one is very interesting. This really helps you answer maybe two segments on the poll that we had as well, right? Building out an employer brand, and really the fallout, if it's a well communicated kind of employer brand and messaging that gets pushed out, is really sourcing and attracting people. Now, I say this again, I fundamentally believe in this. There are no right or wrong kind of companies, there are no right or wrong kind of people. There are all kinds of companies out there, there are all kinds of people out there. It is about really pushing your message out in the best possible manner to the target audience that you really want to push out, so that you're able to attract the kind of talent that you really want. A lot of times dissonance really happens is where companies are saying X, candidates are expecting Y, and really people come in, people hear about some of the stuff from ex employees, or possibly through their network. These days information is available at the click of a button, so people are very doing a lot of research around companies. So what is the messaging that you're really putting out there? Defining your employee value proposition, right? Employee value proposition actually serves you in a big way on two fronts. Number one, for your existing employee base, it helps create that sense of pride that this is what my company stands for, and this is why I'm here, and I'm really in a good place. And ultimately impacts your retention, and ultimately thereby reducing the need for getting into that war for talent acquisition to begin with. But at the same time, if you have a well crafted, well thought out employee value proposition, then really communicating that and finding your target audience, where that target audience is, what forums, what platforms does this target audience really uh, uh, engage in, then really pushing that message on those platforms, on those to that relevant target audience, you will really be able to attract the kind of talent that you value and you are willing to make a lot of investment in. And this is where the EVP really needs to be true to what the company stands for, true to what the company has to offer. Because again, the disillusionment between what the company is saying that it or is promising to prospective employees versus what happens when they join, that really needs to be a good fit. And trust me, uh, this really makes sourcing and attracting talent a whole lot easier. uh, at Xiaomi, we've done that very successfully. Okay, I won't say that we've done it very successfully, but we embarked upon this journey where we started crafting our EVP, and then we are experimenting a lot in terms of what uh, what channels do we push this out in, and all of this has been done in house. So we did not reach out to a marketing agency. This was something that the HR team, and within the HR team, the talent acquisition team really took it upon themselves and helped craft out a EVP statement, and we are now really pushing it out slowly, steadily, and we are trying to also make sure that all other policies, practices that we have in place, they're true to the EVP, so that that dissonance isn't there as much. Uh, and of course, communicating that EVP over the to the right target audience as well. Now, spray and pray or carpet bombing versus sharpshooting or sniper tactics or laser guided missiles, right? Again, we are talking about war. I couldn't resist using some of this war terminology here. But just like, candidates on the other side, they go onto a job portal, they search for jobs. 10 jobs come up, and they just select that master button at the top, apply to all, and they have no clue what job did they apply for. And later, when a company reaches out to them, then their first question is, can you tell me more about the company, can you tell me more about the role? Because they had no clue what is happening. It's similar on the talent acquisition side. You send out mass emailers, you post a job, random people are applying for it, or you're searching for job or CVs on a portal, and then you get like 100 results, and you send out a templatized email to all of them. So that is, a spray and a pray or a carpet bombing that's happening across the board. On the other side, you are possibly only looking at maybe 5 or 10 people for a particular role. These are well thought out searches. These are conversations that you've invested a lot of time in building, in nurturing, reaching out, speaking with those people, selling the job to them, attracting them, telling them, or communicating your EVP to them, and then these guys responding positively, and you really have a much higher possibility of a conversion or a ratio there. Again, these conversations, what are these conversations really getting hinged on? Are these conversations about career? Are these conversations about culture? Are these conversations about growth? Or are these conversations about just money and what percentage hike, or in hand conversations? These kind of indicators really tell you if this person is ultimately going to join you at the end of the day post receiving the offer, or is this person possibly just shopping? Or even if this person joins you, this person is not necessarily a careerist, is more of a missionary, is more of a mercenary. Yeah, to use to use that terminology, is more of a mercenary soldier available to the highest bidder, rather than a missionary soldier who aligns with the organization, the team, the department, and what the organization is really hoping to achieve in the long run. Now, not everything that you will try is going to work, but you have to make sure that you keep on experimenting, you keep looking at the data, you keep circling back to, okay, what could be incremental gains, or what could be big ticket disruptions that you really want to do. I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 examples from this uh, entire piece, right? So in 2019, we started crafting out our EVP, and we did that completely in house. It was a combination of the talent acquisition team speaking with multiple teams, multiple employees, candidates, ex-employees, current employees. Really, what makes them get up and come to Xiaomi every day? How would they define the culture in one word? These were the kind of conversations that we were having with existing employees, ex-employees. We reached out to them and we said, hey, between Xiaomi and your current company, what are some key points of differentiation that you say? If you had to talk about Xiaomi, to describe Xiaomi in your new company or in your new environment, what keywords would you use? To candidates on the other side, people who had applied for jobs with us, we were asking them what made them really apply to Xiaomi for a job in the first place. So these were 3 or 4 different groups, and then we also had conversations at junior levels, at mid levels, at senior levels, and we collected all of this, and we then crafted out our EVP statement. uh, but then in 2019 we instituted something called a Me Summit. This is our flagship business case study competition. This was first year, 10 colleges, and every college that we were reaching out to, most colleges were actually turning us down. But 10 colleges really, were gracious enough, were kind enough to allow us and invite us into their campus. And that's where we, took it up for the first time. Uh, To be very honest, we were absolutely overwhelmed with the response that we got. We got some 500 odd teams. That means, about 1,000, 1,100 odd people signed up for Me Summit 1.0 in 2019 from 10 campuses. Uh, 2022, we launched Me Summit. This time we've had 11,000 students from, the top 27, 30 odd, campus and business colleges across across the country. The response has been phenomenal. It's been an absolutely action-packed kind of a month for us. And really incredible. But it took us 4 years to get to this stage, right? It's not like it happened on day zero. But what we've now done is, people who are the finalists. We have 12 teams. We have 24 students from Tier 1 MBA colleges across the country. And as a part of the grand finale, we are going to be interviewing them and we are offering them PPIs. Now, this helps us actually attract the kind of, students or graduates from these schools of consequence, people who've invested a month of their life at in a case study competition at Xiaomi. These are people who've already done a lot of research about Xiaomi, the ecosystem, and the different channels and everything else that we, you know, uh, are all about. And these are absolutely aligned people who, if they decide to take up, a PPO from us, then these are what I said, are missionary workers and not necessarily mercenary workers. At the same time, last year we decided that we are going to launch something called uh, young minds program. So we were like, okay, Me Summit is typically for students in the second year. Let's tap into, go one step before that. Let's go into and tap first year students. Let's start engaging with them within the first year, so that by the time they get to the second year, they absolutely aligned with Xiaomi. We would have had 1 year of working very closely with them, because Young Minds was supposed to be a mentoring program. So mid-level, senior level managers at Xiaomi were paired up with students on the other side, first year students on the other side, who are possibly very confused about career. What kind of decisions do they need to make now to build their career, and how do they look at building a long-term career. And this is where Young Minds was a concept that we had launched in 2021. It was very well received, again, in campuses. Okay, I wouldn't say very well received, but it was moderately well received. It wasn't all that bad. It wasn't all that great. We still managed to get about 25 odd, 2,500 odd, students who signed up for it. Again, from close to about 20 to 25 odd colleges. So again, the response was very good, or I would say at least not bad. But yeah, it was supposed to be a 1 year long journey, and we were looking at setting up mentoring sessions with uh, people from Xiaomi and pairing them up with these students. And we had selected about 20 students that we would mentor over the course of the next 1 year. But somewhere down the down that road, over a 1 year journey, either the mentors were losing interest or the mentees were losing interest. And then a lot of mentees were like not very sure that this is, it's not like this is going to get them credits in college, in one of the courses that they may be doing. So why spend some more time when they have so many deadlines and everything else happening on campus, on ground. So some mentees dropped out, some mentors dropped out, but I won't call it a very successful program. And this year we're back to the drawing board. We're not going to be doing Young Minds 2022, but we are looking at how else can we engage with first year students. So we keep experimenting, we keep moving forward. The next one is, of course, everyone is a recruiter, they just don't know it yet. And when I say this, I would probably take the biggest example from my OLX days. When I had joined OLX, I was the only person in HR for about 2.5 years. And I was, the second go-to-market hire for OLX India. So there was Amar, our CEO, and there was me, and really literally went about building out the entire team. Uh, so all the business heads, all the other CXOs that we had on board, it was a very clear mandate between Amar, our CEO, and me, and a communication to everybody else in the organization that, hey, Varun is the only person in HR. He's not just going to be doing hiring for you. You guys need to work with him and source and attract and help him work and make it, extremely efficient for him, because he has other things to do as well. He's responsible for payroll. He's responsible for performance management, for learning and development. So his job is not just to, sit on a job portal, source CVs, and then just keep, lining up interviews one after another. You guys have to participate and, contribute to that process in equal measure. And I think that kind of alignment at a business strategy level, that kind of endorsement, that kind of support from the organization head really made life very easy for me, and everybody who was participating in that entire sourcing and talent attraction journey there. They were doing a phenomenal job of it. Candidates were getting converted very, very easily, because the hiring managers themselves were the ones who were reaching out to them and pitching the job to them. And really, very honest conversations were happening. Those job interviews were probably some of the richest conversations that happened during that journey. Uh, uh, Again, there are a lot of metrics that talent acquisition professionals and HR professionals really like to track, and there's a lot of weekly, monthly, quarterly, half yearly, annual reporting that happens. There will be very granular KRAs, and more importantly, very granular KPIs. What's the turnaround time? What is the channel mix or the source mix? What is the time to hire? What is the fill rate? What is the open rate? So there'll be enough and more, cost per hire. So there'll be enough and more metrics that everybody is really looking at. But what are you doing with those reports? How are you actually tweaking your sourcing channels? What kind of strategies are you going to be making, based on some of the information and some of the insights that you have? At the same time, don't get too caught up in the numbers. Sometimes averages can be misleading. There could be hidden gems of information which are happening at the extremes, the outliers, so to say. Just make sure that, on an ongoing basis, all of this data is also actually getting validated in the form of first person conversations, first person feedback that you're seeking. What channels are working well for you? What channels are candidates most active on? And if you get that sense, what kind of forums candidates are most active on, that's where you will really be able to push out the EVP that you've crafted. You then inherently start tweaking your messaging, and you'll start finding more better uh, forums to land that messaging at, and actually attract the kind of uh, talent that you really want to. Ultimately, you know you have to measure what matters. You can't just be tracking everything just because it is available for tracking. A lot of metrics may not necessarily make a lot of sense in your environment, in what you're working in. And again, it has to be integrated employee life cycle. And this is where we talk about customer life cycle, and we talk about customer life cycle management, and you have CRM teams. Similarly, you have employee life cycle management, right from sourcing and attracting the kind of people that you want to bring on board, to making sure that your learning and development investments are happening in building up the right skills, from a succession planning perspective, from a promotion perspective, from getting these people ready for the next big change, or getting these people ready to deliver on the business strategy. So right from hiring to when these people are on the job with you in that role, to the kind of compensation and benefits that you're offering. Are you rewarding the right behaviors? So this is where that unified competency framework comes into play. Again, I'm not throwing big words at you. If you're not ready for a competency framework, don't sweat it out. Just figure out those knowledge, skills, and behaviors. And again, everybody possibly has a lot of skills, but what are those skills which actually have an impact on business performance and business results? What are those skills? So I may have 10 skills, but only one of those is really helping create that business impact, is helping me deliver that superior performance. Uh, so that is the skill that should actually form a part of the JD, that this is the skill that is valued. Now, this skill uh, is, again, I'm referring to myself and I'm assuming I'm a high performer and I'm contributing a lot to the business. So that's where that skill, that distinguishing skill really is what you really need to go to market to hire for. And even if you may have 100 people who don't necessarily possess that skill, but even if you're actually able to find those 10 people or 8 people or 5 people, your job is done. It's the same way, right? You look at the top of the funnel, you start with 100 people, you reach out to 100 people, maybe only 20 respond. Out of the 20, maybe only 10 get invited for first round interviews. By the time you get to the final round, you have 3 people. Now, if you have 3 people for one position, that's not a war for talent. You're in a very comfortable position. And that's not a war for talent acquisition, definitely. But yeah, again, goes back to look at the data. How has your data really changed over a period of time? Look at those trends. What are those trends? Have those changed significantly? And if they have, yes, you probably are caught up in that war. Otherwise, things are going well for you. You're in a great place. You don't necessarily need to worry too much about it. Just keep experimenting, keep moving forward, keep looking at what new or what else could I really do to make things interesting for the candidates, for the organization, for myself. And you already have cracked it. So with that, really, it brings me towards the that's all that I had to say. And opening it up for questions, comments, any feedback that you have for me, happy to even engage and possibly hear about some success stories that you may want to share with me, and more than happy to engage in a conversation outside as well. uh, but thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Noel, back to you.
I guess it was a brilliant session with a lot of snipers, tactics, missiles, right? And let me check if we have any questions on board. Yes, question that we have in terms of Nag asking us a question in terms of one of the other challenge that is being faced is the need for cross-skilled people, that is multi-skilled, and the shortage of that in reality. So what I mean is that there is in the resume is not available during the interview, but maybe they add it after doing through the JD, going through the JD. So how do we tackle it? So I guess it's a very elaborate question here. Would you like me to read that again one more time?
No, so hopefully I'm able to answer this, right. There's a and almost everybody in HR would know this, right. There is a technique in interviewing called BEI, right, behavioral event interviewing, which really is built on the premise that um, uh, your past performance and your past behaviors is a good predictor of how you will respond or behave in future situations as well. So people may just craft a CV based on the JD, after looking at a JD, but then what they've actually mentioned on their CV, if you go deeper into it beyond the obvious first questions around tell me about your job, or what was exciting about this role, or what was good about that job, or what was the challenges that you faced. uh, uh, there's a model known as STAR model. It's called situation, task, action, and result. So if you start asking very pointed questions, so if I was to ask you, Noel, that tell me about a situation where you had to deal with ambiguity on the job, describe the situation to me. Then you go to the next thing, which is the task. Okay, so Noel, specifically, what were the tasks that the team, or the company, or your department, or your manager agreed that these are the tasks that need to be done? Okay, now you go one level deeper from there. uh, Specifically, Noel, now what actions did you take? What was your role in the larger team? Now
Right.
go deep, go wide, scratch below the surface. And then, as a result of those actions, what were the
Right.
results that were delivered? Now this is where you move away from we statements and get this person to start answering in I statements, right? And this is where you start unpacking that CV. This is where you start going deeper into that CV. This is where you can even probably say this to your candidates at the very beginning. Hey, I don't want you to use we statements. uh, don't worry, I won't judge you if you take credit for the work. In fact, I'd be very excited to hear what kind of work you've done, and let's go deep into it, and then describe the situation, describe the tasks, describe the actions, and what were the results. It could be good results, it could be bad results, but at least there was some action which led to results, and fallout of that is what this person is made up of.
Absolutely. Well, we are running out of time, but we still have questions popping up. I also see people raising hands. I guess it'll be great if you can drop off a note on the chat box. So we'll just take last two questions, Varun, just to be,
Sure.
on par with the time, respecting uh,
Sure.
two. So if I look at the next question, I have uh, an attendee asking: do you think having an approach of hiring only from similar industry or competitors for all open roles good for an organization?
Honestly, no. So I think that's where you get stuck in that cycle of the same things happening in the same industry, and the pace of innovation and the pace of growth actually slowing down, because you start getting people who were probably with a competitor and who are now with you, or were with you, went to a competitor, went to a third company, back again. And it's just a very self-limiting cycle. uh, uh, Something that we've done at Xiaomi, in fact, if you were to look at some of the people who were key business heads for us, in fact, including Manu, our ex managing director for Xiaomi India. uh, Manu came from Jabong, did not have any background in smartphones, right? And prior to Jabong, Manu was working with McKinsey. So smartphones was probably the one thing that he had absolutely no clue about, but he just went ahead, took it on as a challenge. Murli, our president at Xiaomi India, uh, was a part of Jabong but had no overlap with Manu. Uh, and Murli was, the CPO and the CTO there at Jabong, and joined Xiaomi as COO, where he's talking about supply chain, logistics, warehousing, and all of those things. Uh, so absolutely unrelated backgrounds. Raghu, our chief business officer, uh, again, came from Snapdeal. Started off as managing our online partnerships, online relationships, to online sales, to taking on the entire category function for us, and growing on to become chief business officer. Again, absolutely unrelated, non-smartphone backgrounds, really helped us cause the disruption that we were looking for. With due respect to the competition that we have out there, right? We beat that competition. We became number one. If we were to hire from that competition, we are at a risk of going to maybe number two or number three spot, because those
Mhm.
people will come in and start thinking and start doing the same things.
Right.
So actually hiring from unrelated backgrounds, unrelated industries, and hiring for skills, which is where that knowledge skills attitude. If you have those skills could be in any industry, and you're hiring for skills, and skills are always transferable. Knowledge can always be acquired. Attitude is inherent. So you hire for those three, and pretty much you'll be sorted. You'll find a bunch of people who will be ready to get their hands dirty, and who'll help deliver on your business strategy.
Absolutely. And we'll take one last question for today. So since Arpit, your question has been taken, we'll give another person a chance. So how do you see talent market shaping up in terms if we would have more talent on the supply side?
Um, I think it is bound to happen. It is definitely going to happen. If you were to ask me the way things are going, a lot of people are, who had quit jobs, are now coming back to the mainstream. Inflation is hitting hard. People are running out of savings. Not every job or every company is looking at gig workers, is looking at contractual assignments. There are companies which are open to hybrid working formats. There are companies which are insisting on in office. There are companies which are offering work from anywhere. So there are all kinds of companies, right? And like I said, there are no right companies, there are no wrong companies, there are no right candidates, there are no wrong candidates. It's about you finding the company which will offer you what you want to do, and the company finding a candidate who cherishes what they have to offer, right? Who will value what they have to offer. And I'm sure there's enough and more on the demand and the supply side. Uh, uh, Companies are probably slowing down their hiring, and this is where supply will probably pick up. But then again, it's going to be cyclical. There will be a time when companies will, start accelerating hiring, and then supply side would wean off. But uh, overall, it is cyclical. You can't really say that okay, it's a great time for talent or it's a bad time for talent. We've seen in the first half of the year there have been a lot of layoffs that have happened, very public layoffs. But then on the other side, there have been companies which have made very big announcements around ramping up capacity, around hiring people, and that's what works as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it reminds me of the statement that I found in your slide that everyone's a recruiter, right?
Mhm.
And saying that, I'd like to ask if, Nonit has anything to add before we, stay. It wouldn't be good if I don't ask that. So,
Thank you. Thank you for accommodating the interruption and the disruption, everybody. I really appreciate that. As you can see, I'm working from home,
yeah,
and this is where, uh, my daughter makes it a point on every call that I come in, and the master negotiator that she is, she will definitely make it a point to join, some webinar, some call, or something that I am in the middle of, and try and get me to give into her demand for screen time.
absolutely. And I'm sure that she will start giving her 2 cents maybe in a couple of years. So
Oh,
you've
definitely,
got a great partner
definitely,
in crime. Yes.
definitely.
So I hope
Right.
that gets your party started as well. Thank you so much, Varun, for joining with us today. It was an absolute pleasure having you. Irrespective, I don't want to say bye, but continue the discussion. But then, unfortunately, we have to probably stick to the timelines. But thank you so much, Varun. We probably want to have a session two maybe in the future if you're free. Thank you so much,
Sure,
Varun.
sure. All right. Thank you for having me, and best of luck, everybody. And have a good rest of the day. Have a good rest of the evening. Bye bye.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much. Well, that was Varun joining. Thank you so much again, Varun. I hope that you have many more successes ahead. We wish you all the very best. And we had an absolute pleasure having you today and also meeting your daughter, Monita, as well. So we come to the end of the session, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining with us. So please share your feedback because your opinion matters so that we can serve you better, cater you better as well. And please don't worry, your questions that have not been answered on the chat box would be replied on a later perspective. But we had a great time having you all here participating as well. So please do like and share when you get your LinkedIn notification, please share it with your friends. All this would be a value addition for someone. So this is Noel signing off as your host. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. And I look forward to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you.